I want you to just close your eyes for a second and imagine a very specific, highly stressful scenario.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
You probably do. So you are the chief technology officer of a rapidly growing e-commerce company. It's exactly 3:00 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Naturally. It's always 3:00 a.m.
Right. And the glow of your smartphone wakes you up before your alarm even finishes its first chime. You look at the screen and it is just a total barrage of critical alerts.
A massive production outage.
Exactly. Your checkout system is completely offline, customers are getting error screens, and you are actively losing thousands of dollars every single minute.
Yeah, that is the ultimate nightmare scenario for any tech leader.
It really is. And in that moment of sheer panic, as you're like staring at the ceiling, you frantically wonder, what AWS support are we actually paying for, and who can I call right now to fix this?
And the harsh reality there is how AWS responds to that frantic 3:00 a.m. distress signal depends entirely on a decision you made months or maybe even years ago.
Right, the specific support tier your account is subscribed to.
Exactly, because the answer could be a dedicated expert immediately hopping on a conference call to triage your database.
Which sounds amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Or it could be you submitting a web ticket and just waiting hours for an email reply while your company's revenue literally drains away.
Wow. Which is exactly why mastering this topic is so crucial, especially if you're preparing for the AWS CLF CO2 exam, the Cloud Practitioner certification.
You really have to know these tiers inside and out, not just as like abstract billing concepts, but how they actually function in the real world.
Yeah, and that's our mission in this deep dive. We're going to decode the exact differences between the 4 AWS support tiers, explore how they work under the hood, and honestly, help you dodge the specific traps exam writers love to set.
Because on the surface, support tiers sound like dry administrative details, but they represent fundamental choices about risk management.
Right.
When a company chooses a tier, they are quantifying exactly how much an hour of downtime actually costs them, and the exam absolutely tests your understanding of that business logic.
So let's get right into it. To figure out who our panicked CTO can actually call, we first need to lay out the 4 fundamental tiers of AWS support.
Basic, developer, business, and enterprise.
Right. And the source materials use this metaphor that I think frames this perfectly. Think of navigating AWS like checking into a massive, luxurious, but incredibly complicated hotel.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it works so well. The support tiers are basically the level of concierge service you choose to pay for. So let's start at the very bottom, the basic plan.
Well, every single AWS account starts with the basic support plan by default, and it is completely free.
But support is a bit of a loaded word here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if I'm in this giant hotel, the basic tier is essentially walking into the lobby and finding, like, a self-service kiosk.
That's exactly it. You can look up the map of the hotel, you can read the FAQ.
I could submit a billing ticket if my key card stops working. But if I want actual technical help,
You're totally on your own.
like if I don't know how to connect my database to my web server,
Yeah, you have access to the documentation and the public community forums. And that's it. There is no technical support hotline you can just call.
so AWS provides the infrastructure, but they aren't going to teach you how to build your app for free.
Right. Which makes total sense for a student messing around with a personal project.
But obviously, the moment you are building something real, you need to upgrade. Which brings us to the developer tier. That starts at around $29 a month.
Right.
So I'm finally paying AWS for help. What does that actually get me?
So back to your hotel metaphor, you can now walk up to the actual front desk and talk to a human. But there is a massive caveat.
Oh, what's that?
The front desk is only staffed during normal business hours in your local time zone.
Oh, wow. Okay, so if I'm up late coding at midnight and I break something, I can't just pick up the phone.
No. And honestly, even during business hours, you generally aren't picking up the phone. Developer support is primarily email-based.
So I just send an email and wait.
You submit a case, and a cloud support associate will get back to you, usually within 12 to 24 hours, depending on how you classify the severity.
Got it.
It is really designed for experimentation, for testing things out. But AWS explicitly sets a boundary here. No urgent, middle-of-the-night rescues.
Wow. So if our CTO from the intro is on the developer plan at 3:00 a.m.,
They are completely out of luck.
that is terrifying. They just have to submit an email ticket and hope someone reads it when the sun comes up.
Yep, that's the reality of the developer tier.
Okay, so when does that boundary shift? When do we actually get the 247 help?
That happens at the third tier business. This starts at around $100 a month, and it scales up based on your AWS usage.
Okay, so this is the crucial threshold. Business is the highly capable 247 hotel concierge.
Exactly.
So it's 2.000A or 2.00 AM. My checkout system is down, and I can finally pick up a phone and speak to a human engineer. I get chat, phone, and email around the clock.
Yes, and this is a major transition in the architecture of AWS support. You aren't just getting 24/7 access, you're getting access to completely different routing queues on the AWS backend.
Which brings us to the SLAs, right? Service level agreements.
Right. If you are on the business tier and you declare a business critical system down event, AWS guarantees a response time of 4 hours or less.
Okay, let's unpack this. 4 hours.
I know, it sounds like a lot.
If I'm bleeding thousands of dollars a minute because my e-commerce site is offline, 4 hours feels like an absolute lifetime. Does that massive gap essentially force companies into the enterprise tier?
Well, that's a super common reaction, but we really have to distinguish between a response time and a resolution time.
Okay, how so?
A 4-hour response SLA means a qualified engineer will begin actively working on your ticket within that window. They might respond in 20 minutes, but the contract guarantees 4 hours.
I see.
And for a mid-sized company with its own internal engineering team, that 4-hour window is often totally acceptable.
Because your internal team is already frantically troubleshooting the issue anyway.
Exactly. AWS is just the escalation point if your team realizes the problem is actually on the AWS side of the infrastructure.
But what if I'm a massive global corporation? What if 4 hours of downtime costs me like $10 million?
Then you definitely do not choose the business tier. You upgrade to the Apex, the enterprise tier, and this is where the price jump is just staggering.
How staggering are we talking?
Enterprise support starts at $15,000 a month.
Wait, 15 grand a month just to have the privilege of calling support?
Yeah.
I mean, I could hire a senior cloud engineer full-time to that kind of money.
Yeah.
How do they possibly justify that price tag?
Because you aren't just paying for access to a call center. You are buying an insurance policy and a fundamentally different routing mechanism for emergencies.
Okay.
Remember that 4-hour SLA for a critical system down on the business tier. On the enterprise tier, that response time drops to 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Wow.
Yes. If you submit a critical ticket on enterprise, alarms literally go off on the AWS side. An engineer drops whatever they are doing to jump on a screen share with your team.
That's wild.
But what's fascinating here is the real reason it costs $15,000 is because of who is responding. And this is a guaranteed exam question.
Right, because if I'm paying 15 grand, I don't want a generic help desk agent who spends the first 10 minutes asking me to spell my company name.
Oh, AWS knows that. So, exclusive to the enterprise tier, they provide you with a technical account manager, or TAM.
Ah, the TAM. So, going back to our hotel metaphor, if business is the lobby concierge who helps hundreds of guests, the TAM is the 247 dedicated personal butler.
That's a perfect way to think about it. The technical account manager isn't just a pooled resource. They are a designated named individual or a dedicated team led by that individual assigned specifically to your company.
So what do they actually do all day? I mean, hopefully my servers aren't catching fire every single week. What is my personal butler doing on a random Tuesday afternoon?
They are deeply involved in your architecture. They conduct regular, well-architected reviews to make sure your infrastructure is secure and cost-effective.
Oh, proactive stuff.
Exactly. They help you plan for massive traffic spikes. Say you have a Super Bowl ad coming up. Your TAM is making sure AWS has enough capacity reserved in your specific region so you don't crash.
That's incredible.
They act as your advocate, too. If you need a new feature from AWS, your TAM goes directly to the AWS product teams to push for it. They know exactly how your databases talk to your web servers.
So when that 3 AM pager goes off, the person you are communicating with already knows your infrastructure. You don't have to explain your topology. They're already looking at the right logs.
Precisely. The TAM is your insider at AWS.
And if you are listening to this right now and studying for the exam, pay attention here. If you see the acronym TAM on the test, you must immediately link it to the word enterprise. Just lock it in.
Yes. Basic, developer, and business do not give you a named individual. They give you a pool of support staff. TAM equals enterprise, period.
Okay, so AWS makes it pretty clear that enterprise is the biggest, most comprehensive plan. But here's where it gets really interesting. I've been looking at some practice scenarios, and the exam writers love to set a very specific psychological trap here.
Ah, yes, the startup scenario. It catches a lot of people off guard.
It really tripped me up the first time I saw it. Let me set it up. Imagine you're a scrappy startup. You have a globally distributed remote team. meaning your developers are working around the clock across completely different time zones.
Okay.
They occasionally run into complex infrastructure issues and need the ability to call AWS support via phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, the startup CEO has mandated that operational expenses must be kept to the absolute minimum.
Right.
Which support plan should they choose?
So what was your first instinct when you read that?
Well, I saw startup and absolute minimum budget, so my brain immediately yelled, developer tier. But then I reread the part about needing 24/7 phone support because the team works odd hours.
And developer tier only gives you email support during local business hours, so developer is out.
Right. So then my brain went the completely opposite way. I thought, wow, 24/7 phone access. That sounds premium. That sounds like you need the concierge or the butler. Maybe they're forced to buy enterprise.
And that's exactly how the exam raters want you to think. They want you to instinctively associate 204/7 phone support solely with the highest possible tier.
It's a total trick.
It is, because if you choose enterprise, you completely fail the CEO's mandate to keep costs to an absolute minimum. You just committed the startup to $15,000 a month.
Yeah, that would definitely get me fired. So the correct answer has to be business.
Yes. The business tier is the exact threshold where 24/7 phone, chat, and email support unlocks. Starting at around $100 a month, it completely satisfies the need for round-the-clock access without bankrupting the company.
You really have to remember where that specific boundary line is drawn.
Exactly. Business is the answer there.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about how to get help once things break. How to get the concierge or the butler to put out the fire. But in a perfect world, our CTO's pager never goes off at 3 a.m. at all.
That's the dream.
Right. How do we prevent the nightmare in the first place? I mean, at 15 grand a month, I'd hope AWS is helping me proactively avoid outages, not just reacting to them.
They absolutely do. And this introduces a critical service called AWS Trusted Advisor. Think of it as an automated, highly intelligent auditor that constantly scans your entire AWS infrastructure.
Okay, but how does it actually scan it? Is there like a TAM sitting there manually clicking through my account menus?
Oh, no. It's completely programmatic. Trusted
Yeah.
Advisor uses a massive rules engine. It constantly queries the APIs of your AWS resources, looks at your Amazon CloudWatch metrics, checks your IAM policies.
Identity and access management, right?
Yeah. Right, your IAM policies. And it compares all of that raw data against AWS best practices. It evaluates your account across 5 specific categories: cost optimization, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service quotas.
Let me see if I can translate those. Let's say it's looking at cost optimization. Is it pulling data, seeing that I have a massive virtual server running, but the CPU utilization has been at like 1% for last month, and telling me, hey, you left the lights on in an empty room, downsize this, and save money?
That is exactly how the mechanism works. It proactively flags wasted spend.
That's awesome. And security.
Well, it might scan your security groups, which are basically your virtual firewalls, and realize you left port 22 open to the entire public internet.
Oh, meaning anyone could try to brute force into your server.
Exactly. It will flag that in bright red.
That is incredibly useful. What about fault tolerance and service quotas?
Fault tolerance checks if you have single points of failure. Like, do you have your entire application running in just one data center, or do you have database backups enabled?
Makes sense.
And service quotas is a bit different. AWS places default limits on how many resources you can spin up. For example, you can only have a certain number of servers in one region to prevent you from accidentally racking up $1 million bill.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so Trusted Advisor warns you if you are approaching that invisible ceiling, so you can request an increase before your application tries to scale and hits a brick wall.
That sounds like a tool every single person using AWS should be looking at daily. But wait, earlier we talked about how the basic tier is free and the developer tier is cheap. Are you telling me AWS gives away all this deep architectural auditing for free?
I am not. AWS is generous, but they are still a business. There is definitely a paywall.
Of course.
If you are on the basic or developer tier, you get a heavily restricted version of Trusted Advisor. You essentially only get access to the core security checks and the service quotas checks.
Oh, okay. So if I'm on basic, what am I actually getting for free versus what's locked behind the paywall?
Basically, they won't let you accidentally leave your data publicly exposed, and they'll warn you if you're hitting a billing limit because, honestly, both of those things cause massive headaches for AWS support anyway, but they hold the rest behind the paywall.
So if I want the full suite of Trusted Advisor checks, If I want the automated engine to crawl through my architecture and tell me how to save thousands of dollars or improve performance, I have to pay up.
Yes, you must be on at least the business support plan or the enterprise plan.
So that $100 a month business plan doesn't just get you the 247 phone concierge, it unlocks the full brain of the automated auditor.
Exactly, which honestly often pays for itself the very first time Trusted Advisor finds an unused server you forgot to turn off. And knowing this paywall exists, that full Trusted Advisor requires at least business support, is absolutely essential for the exam.
Okay, let's pivot to one last scenario. Let's say Trusted Advisor missed something or, a backhoe cuts a fiber optic cable somewhere and an outage does occur.
It happens.
Our CTO is staring at their phone at 300. Their checkout application, which is running on a virtual server, an Amazon EC2 instance, is completely unresponsive. Before they wake up their internal team or call AWS on that 15-minute SLA, they need to answer one immediate question. Do I break my server, or is AWS itself broken?
Right, establishing the blast radius. Is this an isolated hardware failure on the specific physical rack hosting your virtual server, or is an entire AWS data center offline?
Exactly. And to figure this out, AWS provides two different dashboards that sound incredibly similar but serve totally different functions. The AWS Health Dashboard and the Service Health Dashboard.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, this name convention is brutal. How do you keep them straight?
It trips up almost everyone. The key is to understand the scope of what they're actually reporting.
Okay, I have an analogy I've been working on for this. Tell me if this works. Imagine you are sitting in your living room watching a movie and the TV suddenly shuts off. The room goes dark. You need to know what happened.
Okay, tracking.
Checking the Service Health Dashboard is like walking over to your window, looking outside, and seeing if the entire city's power grid is down. Are the streetlights out? Are the neighbor's houses dark?
That is spot on, because the Service Health Dashboard shows the global status of all AWS services across all regions. It's a public web page. Anyone in the world can view it to see if Amazon itself is experiencing a systemic regional outage. If the streetlights are out, it's an AWS problem.
Right. But what if I look out the window and the streetlights are completely fine, the neighbor's lights are on? That means the city grid is fine. So I grab a flashlight, walk down to my own basement, and check to see if someone just tripped the circuit breaker inside my specific house. That is the AWS Health Dashboard.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The AWS Health Dashboard requires you to actually log into your account. It is personalized. It shows you alerts, scheduled maintenance, and hardware issues that are directly impacting your specific resources.
So if our CTO's specific EC2 instance died because, I don't know, the underlying physical hard drive in the AWS data center degraded, the Global Service Health Dashboard wouldn't show anything because AWS as a whole is totally fine.
Exactly. A single degraded hard drive doesn't bring down an entire region, but your personalized AWS Health Dashboard would have an alert saying, hey, we detect hardware degradation on this specific instance ID that belongs to you.
God.
So if you get an exam question asking where a systems admin should check for personalized resource-specific alerts, it is the AWS Health Dashboard. Down in the basement. Not the Global Service Health Dashboard looking out the window.
That is incredibly clear. Okay, let's put this all to the test. Let's do a quick lightning round to make sure you are absolutely bulletproof for the CLF CO2. 3 quick exam-style scenarios synthesizing everything we just discussed.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1. A company is migrating to AWS and strictly requires a designated technical point of contact who intimately knows their architecture. Which support tier is required?
The keyword there is designated. You need the technical account manager, the TAM, and TAM equals enterprise tier.
Boom. Scenario 2. A cost-conscious tech company needs 24/7 phone access for their global remote team, but wants to spend the absolute minimum possible.
Ah, the startup trap. 24/7 phone access unlocks at the business tier. Don't let them trick you into choosing enterprise just because it says 24/7 phone.
Love it. Scenario 3. A developer notices their specific EC2 instance is unresponsive. They need to know immediately if this is a personal account issue or a global AWS outage. Where do they check for their specific personalized alerts?
Personalized alerts mean you need to check your own circuit breakers. That is the AWS Health Dashboard.
Perfect. So what does this all mean? Let's retrace the journey we've just been on. We started in the hotel lobby with the free self-service basic tier, essentially reading the FAQ alone. We moved up to the developer tier, getting business hours email access to the front desk. Then, we crossed the crucial 247 threshold with the business tier, unlocking around-the-clock phone support, that 4-hour critical SLA, and the full power of the AWS Trusted Advisor auditing engine.
And finally, we explored the massive jump to the enterprise tier. $15,000 a month buys you a 15-minute response SLA for critical outages, and most importantly, it buys you the technical account manager, your designated personal butler.
And we wrapped it up by figuring out how to diagnose the fire when it actually happens. Looking out the window at the Global Service Health Dashboard or checking our own circuit breakers with the personalized AWS Health Dashboard.
If you can understand the business logic behind these tiers, like why a company chooses to pay for a 15-minute SLA versus a 4-hour SLA, you won't just pass the CLFCO2 exam, you'll actually understand how enterprise cloud operations function in the real world.
But before we sign off, I do have one final thought. All this talk about the automated trusted advisor engine, scanning APIs and finding faults, it makes me wonder about the future.
How so?
Well, we emphasize the immense value of the human technical account manager at the enterprise tier. But as AI models become exponentially more capable of analyzing complex architectures, reading logs, and instantly identifying root causes of outages, at what point does the human TAM become heavily augmented or even replaced by an AI?
Wow. That is a profound question. I mean, if an AI can provide a 1-second SLA and knows your entire architecture better than any human could, how does AWS continue to justify the $15,000 price tag for the enterprise tier?
Right.
The value of human empathy and, actual advocacy in tech might be the only thing keeping that tier afloat in the long run.
Will the personal butler of the future just be an algorithm? Definitely something to mull over. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into AWS support plans. We hope we've armed you with the knowledge to crush your certification exam, and more importantly, the wisdom to know exactly what dashboard to check and who to call when your pager goes off at 3:00 a.m. Keep studying, keep questioning, and we will see you on the next deep dive.